Welcome to The View with Vertex, the show that takes you behind the scenes with some of the most influential people, personalities, and companies shaping the scaffolding industry. This next episode is brought to you by Scaffchamp, powered by Layher. Layher are an absolute juggernaut of innovation and efficiency within the scaffolding sector, along with their great partners, KEWAZO. KEWAZO are doing great things to address labour shortages and the risks of manual handling in the construction industry. I truly hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, all I ask is that you like, subscribe, and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Welcome back to The View with Vertex. It's April, which can mean only one thing. We are getting prepared for Scaffchamp 24 on the 24th and 25th of May. First guest on the run-up to Scaffchamp 24 is none other than Simon Espinosa. Simon is the sales manager for KEWAZO. KEWAZO got a long history with Scaffchamp. They've been there with Scaffchamp since day dot, so we're going to get a bit of an insight into who they are, what they're all about, and why they feel so compelled to get involved with such a fantastic composition. Simon, hello.
Yeah, Isaac, well, thank you very much. I think we met last year during the competition.
Yep.
We've been talking ever since, and I'm really glad to be invited to your podcast.
It seems to build year on year. Do you know what I mean? It seems to get more attention from people, seems to get more traction. I'm hoping more guests this year. There are definitely more teams this year. So, you know, can only grow from this point.
I mean, just from the UK, last year you had 0 people.
There was one.
Yeah,
and they had to pull out
this year or
last year.
Last year.
Yeah, so there was. I won't mention the name, but there was one last year, and they had to pull out.
Okay.
But now we've got 3.
Now you have 3.
Yeah, 3.
And then you had 2 Irish teams, but now one pulled out, so you have only 1.
I'm not sure if he's still an Irish team. Is there another Irish team?
Comiskey.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah.
So good bit of a representation from the British Isles, or at least Western Europe.
Yeah.
It's looking good. It's shaping up pretty well. I think that's the you mentioned about connections that you made last year and the year before, etc. I think that's the thing I found the most fascinating about it. I was looking forward to going anyway, because it's a spectacle, isn't it? Right, like you don't really see stuff like this from day-to-day competitions about scaffolding. But I think it was the amount of sort of connections and people have stayed in touch with since, and like even been managed to do deals and business with. It's an unbelievable event. How did you find that side of things, the networking?
It's crazy. I think I don't come from a scaffolding background, but once you get into this industry, you find that everyone loves it and everyone is critical about it. You put a picture on LinkedIn and 5 people comment. Ones love it, some people start finding a problem, and just everyone commented about it, and it's contagious. I'm walking through the streets with my girlfriend, and she's already saying, "Oh, Simon, this and that," and then she comments about the scaffolding. And I think that's the great thing about Scaffchamp. That you're just concentrating people that love what they're doing, they love the industry, and then you have amazing scaffolders who are just loving to build the scaffolds and doing it as quick as possible and competing against other people. I don't imagine bricklayers competing it, because
I think an element of it is because it's like it's a team sport, right? Like you're working in gangs of 4, 5, 6 people, and there's always that element of competition, even within the team. People want to be the quickest or the fastest or the strongest, even within the team. So then it's only logical if there's another team next to you, you want to compete with them as well. And it's that type of industry. And like you say, the sort of criticism online, everyone thinks they're the best in the world at it.
Yeah.
But you have to come to Lithuania if you want to prove it.
Yeah, that's true. You really do. And what's funny is some of the companies I've talked to, and there was this joke going around and said, "How many people do you need to build a scaffolding?" I said, "I don't know. If you use Liftbot 3," and they said, "No, no, no. No matter what you use, you need 20 people." And I go, "Okay, that's weird." They say, "Yes, you might need 3 to build it, but you need 17 to complain about it." And then everyone was laughing about it, and now that I know the people better, it's true. Like
Yeah.
everyone's very critical, and everyone thinks they can do it better, and as you say, there's only one way to prove it.
I personally feel like that's where the reluctance came from some of the UK teams. I think because people have different, because different countries have different regulations and there are different standards elsewhere in the world. I think a lot of the UK teams thought that if they were seen doing something that's not allowed in the UK, that the customers might go, "Oh, that's not unsafe," and or that they might get a lot of negative comments online. In fact, I was speaking to Dan at Scaffmag, and he was saying the same thing. He said a lot of the stuff online, like on Facebook and places like that, where people saying, "Oh, these people, they're calling themselves scaffolders. They're only using Lego." Like, Oleg has been calling it Lego. I think that's like the criticism, and the British teams are a bit like, "Right, we don't really want any of that smoke. We'll just stay out of it." But things are changing, and I think even like from the competition perspective, I think the rules are changing. Safety is going to be more of a priority this year. So it's good that we've got these British teams involved. How they get on?
No, I think it's gonna be exciting. I think it's gonna be lots of fun. Also, because as you said, it's a team effort, and you really have to trust the other scaffolder right next to you. Trust that he's passing you the correct tool, that he's grabbing it at this time you expect him to grab it, and so on. And that's also part of the excitement, but that's also part of the risk. So that's why safety is gonna be so important, and that's why the organization team is thinking so much on safety, and why from some years forward, every time you think of scaffolding, you really do have to think about safety.
Yeah. I suppose Liftbot is and KEWAZO are at the forefront of that. Trying to make the industry safer, try to reduce the reliance on like manual handling. I mean, it even says in one of the NASC guidance documents, manual handling is the most significant risk, or one of the most significant risks to your health and safety in the scaffolding industry, and in most industries. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. I mean, the more people you have on site, the more risk of something happening, right? The more material you handle manually, well, the more risk you have of something dropping, right? And in scaffolding, usually everything's done manually, right? So that just means huge risks. You also know a lot about safety, but you know that a scaffolder can get tired, can drop something, and then you just have a line of people below that we're trusting that that person was going to hold it. And what we've done in KEWAZO is trying to take human error out of the equation, leave the scaffolders to keep building as they love to build, but then get material from point A to point B 10, 20, 30 meters higher in a very safe and quick manner.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where we're focusing, that the parts won't fall down, that you won't have human errors, because we have sensors that will take care that your scaffolders won't be able to do something they're not supposed to, and that the material arrives safely to the top, so then they can build it and reducing manual handling in the process.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned something there, and it's like, even I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, is like the the insurance cost. And I always think about Liftbot being a labor saving piece of equipment, sometimes a time saving piece of equipment. Obviously, there are different use cases, but I never thought of it from like an insurance perspective. And that was one of the big challenges when I had the scaffolding business, was like when we took more people on, the insurance would always go up, and and it goes up quite a lot as well. And you don't even aside from the fact that bringing more people into your teams is going to cost you more money, because you've got to pay each of them, it's more wages to pay out. But the fact that cost gets reduced and the insurance cost would get reduced as well, because there are less personnel on site, really something I hadn't even considered before about it.
Yeah. But that's from an economic point, right? Think about also like from a social point, right? It's a family waiting for someone at home, expecting them to arrive healthy at home, right? When you have people chain lining material 10, 12 tons a day, of chain lightning material, the person will arrive home completely exhausted, which won't have time for the family, right? Or hope not, but if something happens and something drops, well, he'll be arrived injured home, right? So it's not just for the company that you have like all these economic benefits, but also for your laborers, right? And in terms of the labor safety, it also comes to you, right? They can maintain the productivity during the whole week and not just the first days. They won't get as tired. And we've thought also, when we've been designing it, how can we help the companies but also help the people who are using it? And that's been like one of our main ideas.
Yeah, I guess that's always going to be the big challenge as well, isn't it? I mean, I suppose loads of equipment that you could sell to a company owner and say, this is going to save you time, it's going to save you money, etc., etc. It's going to reduce your insurance costs. And then, most company owners would get that and buy into it. But the challenge is always going to be at the front line, and it's always going to be the person using the kit. And, everybody knows what we're human beings. Everyone's scaffolders more so than other trades as well, quite resistant to change. You change the slightest little things, like, oh, they try to do this, they try to do that. But yeah, like you said, like, you're not going to get that level of resistance if they're going home at the end of the day and think, you know what, I feel okay here, I feel quite fresh.
Yeah, that's been great. I mean, a lot of companies we talk to, they say, dude, I tell the guys, use a rope, and they end up chain lining the material. I tell them, use an electric winch, they chain line the material. And he says, why? And he says, well, if we have more people, we'll just much rather chain line the material. It will be faster, right? But the reality is that the boss doesn't want to send more people because it comes too expensive. But the scaffolders don't want to use these tools because they're uncomfortable. They don't feel safe. They see the material swing around with the ropes, or they have other hoists and they rather not use them because they are very tricky to install. They're not reliable, and so on, right? So that's why we said, okay, let's try to make something reliable. And scaffolders are the first ones to say, I loved it.
Yeah.
They are initially very skeptical, and they think,
I think we're always going to be like,
right?
That's just human nature, and we're always going to be like, oh, it's not, we've been doing it like this way for years. It's like the most dangerous fucking term ever, in it. Like, we've been doing it this way for years. Like, yeah, been wasting money for years. This is like, there are new things available.
Yeah, no, totally. And a lot of them have said like, well, I think this is the first company that is found a solution thinking of us, right? Because a lot of times the solutions are thought about the economic well-being of the companies, but never on the scaffolder. And we try to find a way to combine both of them, because if the scaffolders like it, they will use it. If they use it, the company wins.
Yeah.
Right. So at the end, it's a win-win for everyone. And that's where we try to focus on.
The fact that the gear comes up horizontally is, like lying down. I think that's a big advantage. When you see some of these different hoist manufacturers, and a lot of the materials are being just stood up in the middle of it, you think, it just doesn't look right. If something, I don't know, jolts or moves out of position, all that material standing upright just seems really vulnerable.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Liftbot, it's laid flat. It just seems a lot. It just seems like it's a lot more well contained, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's one thing. So of course it's safer to transport it horizontally than vertically, because of the center of gravity is just gonna make more sense that it's very hard for it to fall down.
Yeah.
But the other reason is ergonomics, right? So when you receive it at waist level, you can just pull it out, and you never had to bend your back. You never had to do any, let's say,
like stooping or
exactly. You don't have to do any weird movement, right? When it comes vertically, then you have to like go down to pull it, then maneuver it, right? Instead here, you're just like standing up at your normal position. You start unloading very comfortably. Also, always you have the safety ledgers there, the handrails, and you just rotate it, take it out. So that's also been one of the
the actual kit rotates as well, doesn't it? It's like not just the fact that it's at handrail height. Can it move both ways? Have I got that right?
Yes.
That it's like it's sort of on a pivot, and it can move in both directions.
It's a pivot, can move both directions, only one direction at a time. So if you wanted to move to the other direction, you just move the basket at the bottom, and then it can move to the other direction. So yeah, the idea is that you don't have to modify your scaffold. You just put it onto a place, and then you can choose which side you want to rotate it to.
What would you say, like, the big vision for KEWAZO is moving forward?
So our idea is to be able to automate the material handling in general. So not just scaffolding, but being able to move other materials. So for instance, you build a scaffold to change the windows of a facade. We want to be able to help you move those windows, right? after the scaffold is built. If you want to change the brickwork, we want to be able to move also the bricks, right? A lot of our customers are industrial customers, and they needed to move insulation, some sheet metal work, and they traditionally would move it with cranes, but getting this material into the scaffold after the scaffold has been built is very complicated. So they have to do like temporary loading bays. With Liftbot, it'll just comes straight inside of the scaffold.
Would you say there's going to be any plans for further like product development, maybe like for carrying personnel? Is that something that's in the pipeline for KEWAZO?
So at the moment, we're not thinking of personnel. We are designing different baskets for different materials. So right now we have the system scaffold or like general scaffold material basket. The idea is to have at the end of this year a general material transport basket. That is this one that I mentioned for insulation, paintwork, bricks. And additional to that, we're designing also one for frame scaffolding, since that is very much used in Germany or in the United States.
Yeah.
So we're thinking also, okay, the whole idea of Liftbot was to be modular. You can detach Liftbot from the rails, you can detach the basket, but you can also change the basket, right? And that's the whole point. If you have
so that different attachments for different work activities and
correct
stuff like that. It seems like this is the way that construction is going, and we try to automate a lot more than we ever have done. I think system scaffolding is another kind of example of that, and again, that's something that in the UK we've been pretty slow to embrace. But you look around the centre of Manchester, if you drive through there now, everybody's using system scaffolding. I mean, we've got Rose system scaffolding next door. They're going to jump on and have a chat with us in a few minutes. They're going to be one of the UK teams. Everything they own is system. Everything they own is modular.
Yeah, I think it's been something that companies have done to bridge this gap with labor, where they don't find enough qualified labor. And since system scaffold is so much easier to assemble and to work with, they found that, okay, maybe we can do it faster with less people, and system is the way to go.
Yeah, right? I mean, there's so many advantages there. Like it takes less time to train somebody, less time to to get them used to the materials. It takes less time to put the scaffold up and take it down. So there's a huge labor saving there. It just I think
the safety part, it's so much
Oh, yeah.
lighter. You take a tube from tube fitting and you feel the weight difference, and you don't even get the length. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and everything's then you've got to transport all the fittings around. They've got to weight to them as well. For me, the future is definitely like modular scaffolding. But yeah, the amount of companies that struggle to make the transition because they've previously been tube and fitting companies, and then they buy Layher, for example, or system scaffolding, and what they'll do is they'll put the same amount of people on the site as they would have if it was tube and fitting, and they're going, yeah, it's good, this stuff, we did the job like a week faster. And it's like, well, yeah, that's good if you've got unlimited work and you've got unlimited scaffolds to put up. Doing it quicker is better because then you can go and put more scaffolds up, but that's not always the case. So if you're just investing into system scaffolding to make the job quicker and you still got the same amount of people, then you just it's nice that the guys don't have to work as hard, and I'm sure they'll appreciate it. But if all you're going to do is send them home at the end of the job, then really you're probably not using the material or your labor effectively. I mean, the idea really is like use less people, take a similar amount of time or maybe slightly quicker, but don't have the cost of labor. I mean, Liftbot kind of answers the same question, doesn't it, in a way?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely don't want to replace scaffolders. We just want to replace the chain lines, the ropes. We still need the qualified scaffolders to erect the scaffold. We just want to handle the material from the bottom to the top, from the top to the bottom in a very safe manner, right? But we still will always need the scaffolders.
Yeah,
right?
But you want scaffolders to scaffold.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, the other thing is, you're not always going to have a particular type of job. Some jobs are going to be taller, longer, wider, whatever. So, I mean, the ideal situation, if you were chain lining and that was your only option, you'd want 2 qualified guys at the top fixing, putting the scaffold together, and everybody else in the chain, no disrespect, but you want like low qualified, low wages or lower wages guys in the chain line because, otherwise you're paying experienced scaffolders to stand still in one spot and just do this. But unfortunately,
but
most companies don't just have that. They have, pretty much everyone's on the path to becoming qualified. So it might not be that you've got, 2 advanced scaffolders on the top and a load of labourers in the chain line. Chances are you're probably going to have 2 advanced scaffolders on the top and a couple of advanced scaffolders, maybe a couple of part 2 level scaffolders or part 1 level scaffolders in the chain. It's expensive. It's a very expensive, a way to get materials up the side of a scaffold.
But even if you can fill it just with laborers, since they're not as experienced, that also becomes a hazard risk, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
So of course, if you fill it just with advanced scaffolders, they won't drop anything, but you end up selling your house, right? But if you fill it only with, let's say, cheap labor, right, you also run into a risk of, okay, these guys are not even experienced to chainline the material properly, right? And then you have this balance where it's really expensive, where you have advanced scaffolders or part 1, part 2 in the chain, that where they could actually be working on other side or just at the top assembling faster, right? So, but this is stuff that companies still don't believe that they are actually chainlining that much. Companies think that they're very effective with their men because they don't want to think that they're spending hundreds or even thousands of pounds per day in a chain line, right? And that's kind of the trick. When you tell them, they don't believe it, and then they see it and they think that's the exception.
He's definitely not. I think, and like all things being equal, like the scaffolder on the job, the man or woman running the job on the tools, they don't give a shit how much money the owners of the company spending. They just want that gear in their hands as quickly as possible, and like as quick as possible means usually like the chain. And if they've got the people on site, they're always going to default to that option because it's just like, why wouldn't I? So it's just it's a changing of perceptions.
No, and it's what they're used to as well, right? And if you have unlimited men, chainline it. I mean, if safety is not also your priority, chainline it, right? Yep. And really, maybe if you have 20 guys chainlining the material, you'll probably be as quick or even maybe faster than Liftbot, right? But the problem is that you don't have the 20 guys. You probably don't have the money to pay the 20 guys, and then you'll only be faster in the first couple hours. But afterwards, your productivity will obviously drop because your guys are fatigued. Your guys need a rest. But Liftbot doesn't drink. Liftbot arrives on time.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Liftbot is not going to call in sick on a Monday. It's amazing how many grandmas some of these scaffolders have got, but they seem to die every Sunday night. And it's the same excuse. My grandma's died. What again? How many grandmas have you got?
I mean, I don't know because I don't work on site, but I can tell you that Liftbot has no grandma.
What a great slogan for Liftbot. Liftbot doesn't have a grandmother. Speaking of Liftbot, speaking of beer, speaking of Scaffchamp, I guess, like we said before, you've been there since day one. What keeps bringing you back?
I think it's the whole idea of innovation and love towards the trade. So when Layher Baltic invited us the first time, we looked at it and we were like, okay, these guys are thinking something new, but they're finding companies that love the work they're doing. We should go there, right? Next time we were like, okay, this initiative was great. We have to support the initiative because if we don't support it, it might not continue, right? And we just kept working with Victor and the whole team. We've kept on going. We've kept on meeting great companies. It gives us also great visibility around the world on what we're doing. And it's a combination of, okay, they are innovating, we're innovating, and we are all trying to support the people who love this trade. And that's the reason, let's say, the main reason we're going there.
Speaking of support, I probably should get this in the shot as well. The KEWAZO Liftbot hoodie. I'd wear this on a night out when and forgive me for this, when Oleg and you guys said, "Oh, we've got something for you to wear during the podcast," because KEWAZO were one of the main sponsors and all the rest. I thought, oh, fucking hell, here we go. What's it going to be? But I'm like, that looks cool, man. I'm like, I'm into that, and you can't really see that it just looks like like a designer sweatshirt.
Yeah, cool swag.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. You didn't bring the beer this time, though. I was a bit disappointed about that.
We're working here. That's the reason.
This is work. Last time we had KEWAZO beer. I think I've still got a picture of it, put it out on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago.
And that's also a thing. We're a German company. Everything's done in Germany, and Germany is known for cars, beers, Oktoberfest, and yeah, we'll be there in Scaffchamp. We'll have plenty of beers as well to give around and to show our technology.
Yeah, well, there's one word that I always recall from Germany, and that is Feierabend. I think that means end of the day or finish working, and usually we have a beer after that. Yeah. So we will wrap it up here, and we will see you again in Vilnius, Lithuania for Scaffchamp 2024. Simon, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on.
Isaac, it was a pleasure to be here to get some of your insights on the industry, and really excited for Scaffchamp.